All right, cool. So we are rock and roll. We are officially live. We got Tommy on here. We got a couple of viewers. Guys, if you could throw in some hearts, throw in some comments, let me know that you can hear me. Big Tommy, just give a big hello real quick, my man.
Hey, great morning, everybody. I'm glad to be on the cast here, the video.
Dude, love it. Love it. So guys, if you can hear both of us, if you can hear myself, you could hear Tommy, please drop some hearts, drop some comments. Let us know that we are good to go here. We want to make sure that we get all this going here. So, dude, I appreciate you being here, man.
Yes, sir. Absolutely glad to be here, man. Much gratitude, brother. Much gratitude.
Dude, I love it, man. I love it. So you're a busy man.
Oh, yeah.
You got a lot going on, man. So little history. I don't know if you remember, but we worked with the same coach a few years back, AJ Rivera.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, okay. Yeah.
So we got to go back. I think I was on the tail end of his program. I was kind of exiting out as you were beginning.
Gotcha.
But yeah, man. So, but dude, but you have a quite extensive history. So what I want to get into is like your exercise history, because you've really, man, I don't know. I don't even know really where to start, man, because you just have so much going on, which I think is awesome. But I really want to get into the strongman stuff, how you've grown that, maybe touch into kind of the entrepreneurship and maybe some of the stuff that, you know, you've done along the years and done along the way, and even where you're going with all that stuff, man. So we're just going to have a real fun conversation here today.
Good. All good, brother.
Cool. All good. So kind of share with me, like, where does the name Big Tommy Burns, like, dude, I got to know this, man. Like, where does the name come from, man?
So the name Big Tommy Burns. So I've been a big guy pretty much all of my life, and this ties in really well to you know, my story and introduction into strongman as well. But you know, I really coined that name after playing college football, and the coach would always call me over and say, hey, Big Tommy, hey, Big Tommy Burns. So you know, say, hey, Big Tommy Burns, come over here. You know, and then we'll start doing some type of drills or something like that. So after college, I found myself in a place where I needed to kind of reinvent myself, so to speak. And I started calling myself Big Tommy Burns, you know, and I put it up on Facebook as my official name on Facebook, Big Tommy Burns.
I know.
And that, you know, it's cool. Step from there, man.
Dude, that's awesome. So where did you play college ball, man?
Howard University.
Ohio University. No kidding, man.
Yeah. Howard University. I was in DC, so I played football in DC. So I'm originally from Flint, Michigan, and I never played football growing up. I started playing football in the 11th grade. I didn't even watch football before that because I wasn't a fan or anything like that. But I was obviously still Big Tommy Burns in high school. So of course I was recruited heavily to play football. I tried out for the team and quit because it just wasn't my thing at the time. And really, honestly, I only went to school so that I could lift weights. I was that big kid that had a great attitude, who all the teachers and staff loved, but man, I didn't go to school for grades at all. I found myself in 10th grade with maybe a 1.2 GPA, but I went to school every day because after school I would be able to lift weights.
That is amazing. That is such a cool story, because I was the guy that was like, I just didn't want to like have to do with school at all. And like the weight room in school like intimidated me. So I was like, oh, I'm staying away from all that. But dude, that's freaking awesome. So you're going, you know, you're in school, like the weight room. So like, let me ask you this, like, what got you into the weight room? Like, where did that passion and where did that passion come from at such a young age?
Oh man, I told a friend in college one time, it's like, man, you always go into the weight room, no matter where you are. I said, I am the weight room. It started very, very young with me. I think, you know, some of the things that we'll dive into today, as far as what I'm doing, man, it was just divinely guided for me to do what I'm doing and be who I am. So it started with me at a very young age, man. I was the kid. I grew up as Big Tommy Burns. Like I've always been Big Tommy Burns. So I remember being like 6 or 7 years old and going for a doctor's checkup, and a doctor weighed me, and I weighed in at 158 pounds at that weigh-in. And then the doctor put me outside and talked to my mother, and the door was cracked a little bit. He said, "Listen, whatever you're doing, you're gonna have to stop, because he's gonna end up being one of those kids on TV." My mother got upset and frustrated with the doctors. He said, "I'm not doing anything. Like, he's just growing like he's growing, right?" And so
Yeah.
I was always a big kid. I was never, I know what it's like to not be like the popular kid. I know what it's like to be the big kid who wanted to be peaceful and not be the bully, and not be the gangster, so to speak. Because I grew up in a place called Flint, Michigan, man, which is really, for me growing up, was just a big hood. It was a big ghetto, man. So you had to be tough, you had to be hood, you had to be all the, and I didn't want to be all those things. I didn't even want to play sports, right? But I did find myself intrigued when I watched TV, and I seen these big wrestlers like Hulk Hogan and Zeus, who just passed away. That was when I was growing up. And I would see the movie, and I would watch this, the TV, and I see the Ultimate Warrior, and I see all these big guys. And then I find myself watching reruns of World's Strongest Man. And man, I would around the holidays, they run all the reruns during every holiday, Thanksgiving, Christmas, and I find myself sitting up for days watching every rerun. So by the time I was about 7 or 8 years old, I actually knew who the guys were who competed. I knew where they competed. I knew what location. And at 7 years old, there was a guy named O.D. Wilson. He's my all-time favorite strongman. And it was 1990. I was 7 years old, and O.D. Wilson, he's this big guy, 6'6", 400 pounds, and at that time, that's considered a giant. And strongman, professional strongman today is common, right? To see giants like that. Wasn't. And they called him the Nightmare, man. His name was the Nightmare, And so O.D. Wilson, he's getting ready for. He just finished this event, and he didn't take first, but he did very well considering his size. And they interviewed him after the event. And O.D. Wilson is talking about the event, kind of how tough it was. And then he looks into the camera, he say, "I just want to say, for all the kids out there, when you grow up, you want to be a strong man." Good stuff. And for me, Big Tommy Burns, at 7 years old, that pricked my heart. And I said, you know what? I know what I'm going to do, and I know what I'm going to be when I grow up. I'm going to be a strong man. So that's where it started for me. I was a kid to wake up, watch infomercials, try to do all the exercises with it until they went to the sales pitch, right? And then do it all over again because I wanted to be big and strong.
Man, that is amazing. So like you're 7, 8 years old, and you just had this, like you just knew from that moment where O.D. Wilson's like, "Hey, if kids, if you're gonna be anything in life, you want to be a strong man." And that was it. That was it for Tommy Burns. He knew that. Like, how much of a gift is that to just know? Like, I have a cousin that knew, like, he was going to be a police officer. He, like, we always said he came out of the womb squealing like a siren because everybody and the family knew that that was what he was going to do. But how much of a gift is that you just had that direction, if you will, just painted on you. So talk about, because you talked to, during this, you were talking about, I didn't want to be seen as the big guy who's like the thug, and I didn't want to be, I want to, you're kind of like the gentle giant is what I got. Kind of the image painted while you were talking there. Can you kind of talk about kind of that upbringing and why, like not being perceived as a bully, not being perceived as, all right, that's a big guy, he's intimidating. Like, can you walk us through that journey a little bit? Because you're 7, 8 years old, and you're a big kid already. Can you kind of walk us through a little bit about that?
Oh yeah. So that was that was the expectation, growing up. I grew up, in a place, not just in a neighborhood, but just everywhere I went up until that time, for my first, you know, 14 to literally until I left Flint and went to college. I would say for 14 years of my life, that's what it was. It was drugs, it was gangs, it was, I probably thought before I wanted to do like strong man and exercise and be strong
Yeah.
because of what I seen in my environment. I thought that, as a human, you were supposed to grow up, you were supposed to sell drugs, and you were supposed to get caught by the police, go to jail, get back out, and then do that same thing again. Like literally, I remember thinking that
Wow.
because that's, people tend to do what they see, especially kids at that very young of an age in those time periods. I
Yeah.
didn't understand, the connection to school, which is why all the way, through I only had really spurts of good times in school as far as my grades until, until I actually had to apply myself much later in high school when I did decide to play football, because of course you got to have at least a 2.0 to play football. And
Right.
so I never really applied because I never really made the connection there. By the time I left Flint at 18 years old, I'd already been through, at least 12 funerals of family members and friends
Oh my gosh.
because of violence and because of just deaths and things like that. So, life had dealt a pretty tough hand for myself
Mhm.
to deal with and to become the person that I was, and still to hold on to that. But once I found, when I say I am the weight room, once I found the weight room, it became like my own personal sanctuary,
Mm.
right?
Yeah.
So I would go through, all of that as a kid, and I would go through all of that as a teenager, all those deaths and all those funerals and all that sadness and all that heaviness and all that, and I didn't want to be what I seen. And I would become very depressed as a teenager because who I did want to be, I didn't see it in my environment. I only see spurts of it,
Yeah.
and sometimes there was times when, life and the universe and God puts those people in there to show you that love. They show you that, but I wanted to be more of that and less of everything else that I seen. In fact, I wanted to be the person that if I was placed in that environment, that I would just radiate so much love and so much energy and so much power, and it would change the environment drastically.
Mm.
And I didn't see that. I didn't experience that.
How about that?
And so as I continued my journey into my teenager years, I found the weight room in high school, and I just never stopped going. And after that, throughout whatever phase of life I found myself in, whether it was going to college or whether it was, in different relationships and breakups or, friendships or tough times and good times, or regardless of whatever phase it was, the weight room was always the most consistent thing in my life.
Oh my gosh. Dude, that is
Yeah.
such a I did not know this background about you, my man. Like this, my heart is just like jumping for you, dude. Like
Thank you,
I
brother.
feel like, what I got out of your story right there, man, is like you escaped the environment. Like you created your own environment no matter what the circumstances were. Like you saw 12 deaths before you even hit puberty, man. Like it's like
Mhm.
going through that, and then so the weight room was your salvation. Like the weight room was your escape. The weight room was something where that you could just really escape all the hardships of life and all, these deaths and tragedies and the environment that you were around. Can you talk about, because I feel like so many people are there today in their own lives, like they're stuck in their own environments. They're stuck in maybe it's not the environment of like their household or their schools or maybe even the cities that they're growing in, but it's like a mental environment that you're stuck in. Can you talk about, because I feel like you are the prime person to talk to about this, escaping that negative environment, escaping that place where you feel I don't want to be here, but I want to be there, because you talked about I want to be love and I want to be and I want to bring what's different than my current surroundings. Can you share how you were able to do that? How you're or or what the steps were for you or how you even crossed that bridge. Could you kind of elaborate on that a little bit?
Absolutely, absolutely. I think, you know, for that, there's two things that come to mind. There's the both of them has to do with environment. There's something that I call external environment. There's a philosophy that I'm kind of developing. I'm still working on the details, but the power of the external environment and then the power of the internal environment. Right. Once you find what it is that makes you happy, that brings you joy, who you want to be, like I talked about, this is what I want to radiate no matter what. That was now, I didn't see it in my external environment. And so because I didn't see it in my external environment, I had to hold on to it in my internal environment. And I think that might be why I've never thought about this before, but that might be why I watch all those reruns of World's Strongest Man every holiday, because it put me and inspired me to think about the environment that I did want to be in, the person I did want to become, right? And so if you're in that place where you're like a kid, or maybe you're a teenager, or maybe you're an adult, but you can't change your physical environment, your external environment, understand the power of holding on to who you do want to become in your internal environment and becoming that person and doing everything you can to build up that person and that environment in your internal environment. It might require you to read some different things or start to read if
Yeah.
you're not reading already. It might require you to start listening to some different podcasts or some different music. It might require you to start watching some different shows, right? And consistently doing that, because once you start to consistently do that, you'll know the truth about yourself. And the truth will set you free, right? The truth will set you free, man. And when I say the truth, it's really about self-awareness. Nobody could tell you about that. Like, nobody could tell you what your thing is, what your internal environment's supposed to be. Only you. Only you. There was something that you were placed on this earth to do, and only you could do that, right? But it's up to you to figure out not only what that is, but how to become the person that could do that. So now when we start talking about the other thing, external environment, well, maybe you are a person that could go as much as saying, you know what, I've been in this environment for a while, this is not working, let me move to something else. And so that's another thing that started to happen for me in my life, is that once I started to play football, so I wasn't really good with the academics, right? Talked about that up until I started playing football. Tried out for the football team for ninth, 10th grade and quit, made the team and quit, right? Varsity, ninth, 10th grade, quit. I got, and then ending my 10th grade year, I'm in the weight room with all the football players, and they're having this bench contest, right? And so that year, the school had 12 football athletes that signed D1 scholarships to go play ball, D1. And so all these guys are benching, and I'd always been a big kid. I just loved to lift weights when I was in high school. And I found myself benching with, the football athletes. There was 3 benches. There was one for the big guys and the heavy benchers, and one for the junior varsity, and one for the freshmen, right? So I'm over here with the varsity and the big guys. And there's one guy in particular there's a few guys that were very strong, but one guy in particular, he's getting ready to leave and go off to the University of Michigan. He's a 2-time All-American offensive tackle. He's standing at 6'6", 290 pounds at that time. And I went to high school pretty big, but I still wasn't that big. I was probably about 6 foot, 6'1". And at the end of 10th grade, I probably weighed maybe 260, right? But man, we had the bench off of a, of a century, man. And so we're in there benching. And the group was around, and we go up to 250, and a few of us are hitting it. We go up to 300. There's a few of us hitting it, a little bit less. We go up to past 315 and 350 and 365, and finally get to 365. And there's 3 of us left, and 2 of us hit it. It was me, and they called this guy Big Dookie. This nickname, Big Dookie. So it was me and Big Dookie, right? Big Tommy and Big Dookie. And then we go up to 385, right? And both of us hit 385. 10th grade, he's in the 12th grade, right? And then we go into 405, the covenant with 4 plates,
Yeah.
right? And he gets us down, he goes first because he wanted to lead the way, and he gives his best, and he couldn't get it, right? And
Mhm.
then I get down there, I get it, God, boom, and it was a done deal, right? At 10th grade, 405 pounds, the most I'd ever benched in my life. It was a done deal that I was the strongest now, right? But even with that, it wasn't my personality to say, I run this and it wasn't in me. It was good, man, good goal, man. That was awesome, right? But now it caught the attention of the coaches.
Yeah.
Coach pulled me to the side, pulled me outside, and said, Tommy, you should really think about playing football this year. I said, Coach, man, it's not my thing, man. I said, we've been through that before. I tried and quit, blah, blah, blah. He said, let me put it to you like this, Tommy. If you don't play football this year, you can't come back to the weight room.
Oh, he did not. He pulled that card on you.
I said, Coach, where's practice?
Oh my gosh.
So I started playing football because of that level of pressure. But I had to go to high school.
Yeah.
I mean, I had to go to summer school because my grades were at a 1.2 GPA. And so I had to go to summer school all summer when normally I would just figure out what to do in the summer, try to stay safe, try to stay alive,
Mhm.
right? In that environment. But I had to go to summer school. And I made a vow to myself for the first time, said, man, if I had to spend all this time in summer school, then I'm going to keep my grades up regardless if I'm playing football or not. Well, I had a good time. I actually learned some stuff in summer school because it was only 2 classes that I had to take. And I absorbed the things in a way that I hadn't before because I didn't apply myself. Like I had to do these in order to make the football team and get my grade point average up to at least a 2.0. And so after that, what I found was it was easy to learn because I just had to apply myself. So I literally did not fall off the honor roll from that moment on until I graduated high school, right? And so the unlock was I was supposed to earn a scholarship playing football. I was supposed to go to a Division II university in Michigan, and I didn't get high enough ACT score, right? A test score. I only took it one time, didn't know. Again, my family doesn't come from a background of academia and things like that, so we don't know. I'm just learning on the fly. And so I took it one time and didn't have a high enough score to accept the scholarship. And so what ended up happening is I went to junior college, but I went to junior college in Los Angeles because the coaches from the University of Michigan, the DT University of Michigan, knew somebody in LA. And once I got to college, man, learning went to a whole nother level. And that was a great unlock, is that I got away from that environment that I was so used to and still growing in at that time. And if it's in you to grow and to want more out of life, sometimes the unlock is putting yourself, maybe you've outgrown the environment that you're in now, the tank, so to speak, that old, you put a shark in a fish tank, it'll grow to the size of the fish tank. But if you take that same shark out and put it in a pond, it'll grow to the size of the pond. If you take it outside of the pond, you put it in a lake, it's going to grow to the lake. But if you put it in the ocean, it has unlimited potential, right? That's what we used to hear those things about megalodon and stuff like that, right? So the great unlock was me getting outside of that environment because I worked so much on who I wanted to become inside already. That was already a given, who I was going to become and who I was. And now you put me in a bigger pond. Yeah. And the process of growth started all over again. And so even in LA, without any, relationships or family out there or friends or anybody that I knew, those relationships start to be established. I also learned that I could survive even a little bit more, that all of that tough upbringing that I had, it made me a survivor, man. And that even without a lot of resources and a lot of relationships and a lot of all these different type of things, what I wanted in the future and who I knew I was in here was so much more important to me than anything that I was experiencing in a moment, that it didn't matter. I was willing to go through it. I
Man.
was willing to go through it. And so from there, I earned a scholarship to Howard University, playing football. And I found myself in leadership, positions,
Okay.
regardless of where I was. High school, I ended up being the captain of the football team my senior year. LA, I ended up being the captain of the football team by the time I left there. Howard University, the same thing. And then I had a very short stint in arena football as well, in the pros. And so started to find myself the captain even there, by the time I was done playing football. But it still wasn't my first love. It was always, always the weight room.
Oh, and dude, that love for the weight room is what I mean, you owe it all to that love of the weight room and really being true to yourself to where you are today. Because let's kind of backtrack on this. We had a poor GPA. We're lifting weights in the weight room with the football players. Coach notices you because you throw up the 405. Pretty much
Mhm.
says to you, dude, if you want to continue using this weight room, you're going to join the football team.
Yep.
Tommy says to himself, well, I'm damn sure going to be in the weight room. So
Mhm.
I'm not giving that up. That's being true to yourself and knowing that I'm not going to give up that passion. So then you had to say, well, I got to go to summer school to get my grades up in order to be on the football team. And
Mhm.
so this coach was able to actually look from an outside perspective. And I don't know if you've ever given them gratitude or
Oh,
appreciation.
much,
Oh, dude, I like
much.
this coach changed your life, man. Like he changed the
Mhm.
direction of your life, dude.
Oh yeah.
So that is just amazing to me that, you know, if I feel like so oftentimes, like in our own lives, like if we tend to be closed minded, we tend to like, I've got this on my own, and I know my own way, and I know everything, and whatever. Like you could have said that to that coach at that time, and your story would be completely opposite of what it is today.
Uh-huh.
So, dude, and there's just so much to go on here. Like, dude, I could deep dive on the shark analogy. I could deep dive on so much, but I want to move forward. We'll might have to do a part two sometime, but
All good.
I want to move forward. So, so now you went to college at Howard University. So you're in
Mhm.
LA now. So is that how you got to California? Because I know you're in California today, right?
Yeah, so the way I got to California today. So fast forward now, I finished up, schooling at Howard University. You know, junior college, I was always on the dean's list. Howard University, I was on the dean's list. So now that academic potential, is just there because I'm used to pushing myself and getting the most out of myself, even if I don't know how to start. But of course, we know it's not how you start; it's how you keep going, figure out a way to keep going, and then finishing the deal, right? And so we finished there, and it's 2008. I didn't when I graduated. It's 2008. I never made the connection of what that time period was for me up until a recent conversation with my wife because she graduated around the same time, like 2009, 2010. And so I do all this schooling. I've now um, still playing football at that time, but it's on a decline because I'm not really interested anymore and really want to start the next phase of my life. And I cannot find a job, man. I
Hmm.
can't find a job. It didn't occur to me that it was 2008 when the last time that we were in a big economic deal in this country. And man, I remember putting in application after application, resume, sending in hundreds of applications and dozens of resumes, and could not find anything, right? And so that was a tough period. I found myself just working security jobs and that started to kind of sting a little bit because again, I worked so much internally on who I know that I am. There's nothing wrong with a security job, but I wanted to do something else. And I wanted to be known for more than just, the grind. I want to be known for more than just, this guy that you don't want to mess with. Because again, that played into who I didn't want to be growing up,
Yeah.
right? And so even in security, though, I found myself being that person uh, that was a mediator, that was a talker, that was a peacemaker. I can literally count on one hand the amount of times in probably 3 years that I worked in security work bouncing gigs and, private security, that, I got 2 times where there was actually, an incident of violence, and not because of me, right?
Right.
But and again, being that mediator person, being able to just know that I'm there to be who I am, no matter what, no regardless of what job I'm in, to make that love radiate, to make that peace radiate. That's even what happened there. So, and finally, by a divine stroke of guidance, I ended up getting into education in 2011. And a guy that I went to Howard with, who was finishing up his doctorate while I was finishing up my bachelor's, he ended up being in administration at a school. And this is, again, it's so funny because I'm fasting right now, and I was fasting. I was doing one of my very first long-term water fast at that time, and it was like day 11 or day 12 of that water fast, and I'm so frustrated with my creator, because I'm literally like, man, what is going on? I go through all of this life. You make me a survivor. You give me these visions and these dreams, and you make me this person who want to radiate all this love. And I've been around the country doing this and following this vision. And finally, I come to this place where I cannot find a job to, pay my bills, and I'm couch surfing with people at this time because I'm not back in Flint, Michigan. I've decided I wasn't going to go back to there because I couldn't grow there, right? And so now I'm just couch surfing with friends back in the DC, Maryland area, and I'm like, man, what is going on, And I had this moment where I felt him say that, asked the question. He said, well, do you trust me because you plan on getting all this stuff, or do you trust me because I'm me? I had to think about it. But I trust you because of you. Okay. He said, so if I never gave you all that stuff, if I never gave you the influence, or if I never gave you the job, if I never gave you the resources, would you still trust me? I thought that was a tough question.
Yeah.
I said, okay, I trust you. Okay. He said, okay, good. At that time, I was listening probably about 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm listening to Pandora at that time, and there was a spiritual song come on that just asked the question. The whole song is, "I will trust you," right? And man, I'm just bawling. I'm just done, down to nothing, right? And so now, now, I spend some time. It's just in meditation and in worship in probably about 20 minutes, and I decided to put in a few more applications. So I go on Craigslist, type in, just to see what happens. And boom, there's a post that pops up, and I'm reading through it. It's for school, it's for security, for school that had, salary attached to it and benefits, all that type of stuff, right? I'd only done, security gigs, but I never done like professional security work or so. And then I read down at the bottom of it, I see a name that I recognize. It was a very unique name, right? And I wonder if it's this person. Man, I put in, the application and sent it off, went to bed, and that was a Saturday. We were going to Sunday morning. The next day, Monday, there was a holiday. The following day, Tuesday, I get a call, and it's the guy who I went to college with. Yeah, it's a guy who I went to college with, and he's building his team at this school. And now, just mind you, I couldn't find a job, and all of a sudden have this, this favor. So I was interviewing with the school within about a week. Well, that Thursday, actually, that same week, was interviewing with the school 2 days later. Within 2 weeks, I was at my first professional gig outside of college. In that time, I'd done some entrepreneur, but between that time, 2011 and 2008, after I stopped playing football, and even during the end of that, was diving into some entrepreneurial things, and really just started to read a lot of books and things like that to help my own development. But again, it was, that time period where, the economy was down, and, I was a college kid and just kind of figuring things out. at that point. But now had this job, and really this was my very first fast, and understood the power of just again holding on to the belief of knowing who you are. So now I'm in education. Left that job, and I needed to change environments again in order to grow. Through the business ventures that I had been doing, I made friends with people that were in the Northern California area.
Okay.
And so I was thinking to myself, if I'm gonna do this thing, and I need the environment where I could really concentrate, focus, and just dig down deep into it. Because obviously I'm not doing it here on my own. So I think it's time for me to, pick up and go. I sold off everything that I couldn't take with me, and everything else I put into my Toyota Camry. I drove to Michigan to visit my family, and drove to Chicago to visit, some of my family down there, and then drove across the country to Northern California, the San Francisco Bay Area, to just follow that passion and that, to follow that passion and that vision. And here's the thing about that. When you're willing to be obedient to that calling of yourself, that pulling of yourself, and when you're willing to not just be clear. So the first tenet of my life is clarity. Just getting very clear on who you are, clear on what you want to do, who you want to become. The second tenet is courage. When you have the courage enough to take the risk to move forward in the visions and the goals and the dreams that you want to fulfill, it's always going to reward you, even if it's not the desired outcome. Because you can never go back to becoming the person who you were before you decided to take the risk. It might not, it might not be the desired outcome, but that seed that you planted of courage, it might come 5 or 10 years from now. It might come 2 years from now, but it's a seed that you planted in fertile ground, which is your life, and it's going to produce a harvest. So when I got to California, the thing that I'm doing right now, it brought me back to the weight room. I came out here for business stuff, with business relationships, and have really good connections with my friends. But when I got out here, it was being that shark again, and now the ocean, and I was able to grow even more from the pond. And now what I do is what I originally said I wanted to do. It took me 22 years to get back a strong man from that 7-year-old kid.
How about that?
But that's literally all I do now.
Tommy, I gotta love you for this, man, because there was a lot of learning, but there was so much more patience. And then what I love about your story too, man, is like your faith, and just having that call, and just being able to submit, and just being able to say, okay, like asking the real deep questions. Like I always tell my clients, it's like, if you want better answers, ask better questions, you know? And so that was what you were doing. Like when I know about your fast, these 30-day water fast and whatnot. And so for some people watching from the outside in, they're probably like, wait, what? But maybe we can talk about that some other time. But not holding on to stuff and being able to let go in order to receive the blessings that are waiting on the other side of letting go. Like there's just there's so much stuff we could go into that, but
you just hit on something right there. It's holding on to stuff. So there might be somebody out there who's listening. It might be one person who I'm talking to right now, that you've been feeling like you've been stuck for so long, you can't figure out why. And I guarantee you it's because you're holding on to stuff that's not supposed to go into that next phase of who you know you are, that next phase of evolution in your life. And you literally have to let it go in order to move forward. You literally have to let it go in order. And you think that letting go is going to be letting go of your whole life. I worked so hard to get this stuff. But the gift is not the stuff. The gift is you.
Thank you. Yes, dude, I full-heartedly agree with that, dude. There's a reason why we have such a strong connection because I'm just like every time I see your post or every time I see you doing something, I'm like, oh my God, this speaks to me. So, dude, I'm loving this conversation. So, but let's move forward, man. Like, so we're in California now, and I want to get
Mhm.
into the strongman stuff because
Oh
that
yeah.
entrepreneur spirit, like, okay, so you talk about 2008, like I was 4 years into business when 2008
Mm,
hit, and that's when I lost
mhm,
my first gym and, like,
mm,
just crippled everything. But so I know
mhm.
about hardships, I know about overcoming adversity, I know about, what it takes to be an entrepreneur and to live out your dreams, but can you talk about because you're doing something that's on a greater scale, that a whole lot of people are probably looking at and being like, "Man, I if I could just achieve that level or if I could just do that." First and foremost, I want you to talk about what you're
I'm
doing
gonna plug
currently
this
right
charger in before we go.
yeah,
Hold on
yeah,
one
no
second.
problem. Um,
All right. Sorry about that. I'm back here.
no problem at all, man. But can you kinda talk about what you're currently doing right now, and more importantly, the growth, the steps that it took you to reach this place? Because in your bio that you sent me, you're like, "Yeah, my first competition, we had, I can't remember how many athletes, but it was not many, and now we're working with, like, over 300 athletes." Can you just talk about what you're doing today, the growth, the entrepreneur spirit, like,
Mhm.
go into it, my man.
Absolutely. So, what I do today, so my brand is Beast of the Bay Strength, if you can see that down there. So that was my first fitness brand, and it literally, um, it was like something that I knew I eventually wanted to do, like that childhood thing of getting into strongman. And I knew professionally I would end up like in the fitness world somewhere, right? And so, uh, oftentimes or sometimes in life, we we find ourselves being hard head and we find ourselves moving only when life gives us no other choice. And so I kind of overstayed my welcome in education America because I started in education once I got to the Bay Area. And, it was a comfortable job. I was good at it. I'm good with kids. I'm good at communicating with people and, all that good type of stuff. But the whole time I had this inkling that, man, I needed to start training, to compete in strongman because, I'm getting a little bit older. And if I want to do it at a high capacity, then I needed to start training and I should start looking into training other people because that was my community. So regardless of what gym I found myself in, I always found myself pulling people, like being a person that can attract people to be around me because I was always either the biggest and strongest or one of the biggest and strongest people. But here's the thing, I'd always found myself when people smiled at me, I smiled back. When
Yeah,
people talk to me, I talk back. And so again, going back to that childhood thing, I didn't want to be just the big intimidating guy or the big bully or this big thug. I, I know I'm strong, right? And I'm willing to share with you all this. So I found myself with 5 or 10 people, looking for me to come to my training sessions and train with me every time I went to the gym. Irritate the people that own the gym so much and the managers and the trainers because I'd be having more people. Here's the thing: I wasn't charging them.
yeah, yeah, right.
I found myself. I discovered that I was the reason that I didn't pursue it sooner was because I was afraid of transactions. I was afraid of being turned down. I was afraid of being told no.
Mhm.
That's what I was afraid of. I ended up hiring this coach to help me in my own athletic journey and strongman journey. And we're good friends to this day, but he's almost the opposite personality of me, where he's not outgoing. He's strong, big, not outgoing. He don't talk very much. He's not warm. He's not the big, gentle giant guy. He is, but you wouldn't think it because of the personality type. And I watched people walk into the gym and pay him $200 or $300 a month. And he had this little gym, and then I watched him. He would say, "Okay, put it on the calendar, and then put in the write in your next payment for next month." I said, that's all it was?
Yeah.
I could do that. I could do that. And so I ended up actually, I had a conversation with him, like kind of like that coach conversation in high school, right? It transitioned my life. Had a conversation with him and just kind of asked him to kind of mentor me a little bit. And I picked up, I started picking up how to run the actual gym facility. So he became my first mentor in that phase. I, did him a favor by taking on a lot of his clients, almost at no cost, and just really learning the business side of things so I could get income going. But while I was doing that, because I took so many steps of courage to get to that place in Northern California and, just continuing to walk by faith and not by sight, man, I had this inkling about this strongman thing. So when I competed in strongman, I had to go way up north to compete, way down south to compete, or across the country. Even when I left the DC, Maryland area, I would come back to compete because that's where they had competitions. And so some of these competitions, I would see some faces that I recognized from the Bay Area in Northern California. And I said, man, being in business this time, so this is what it taught me. Even though I had moderate success or little success in these different business ventures, it did teach me some philosophy. Is that if you see these people in these different markets, that means that there's a void in your marketplace. And if nobody else is doing it, you're able to fill that void, you could become very significant. And normally there's money that follows opportunity that you capitalize on or that you take advantage of.
Amen.
Well, we started to figure out how to put on strongman competitions, of course, while I'm learning training. And man, we figured out all these different things. I had to reschedule my event like 2 or 3 times because I just wasn't prepared and wasn't ready, had to learn something else. And I think most people would have quit in that process. And I think the gift of my story is from, childhood all the way throughout, I'm a survivor, man. I can endure some pain, especially for progress, right? And so if I'm gonna have to endure pain anywhere, if I'm gonna have to endure stress and depression and all these different emotions, embarrassment, I'm gonna do it because I want to do this my way, right? And so I started to figure these things out about how to sanction a competition, how to get a location and who to connect with, learning about sponsorships, and all that, all this work. It took maybe about maybe 8 months of work to finally get to the first competition. And I wanted to do it within 3, but it took 8 months.
Okay.
And finally, a great big old 12 people in our first contest.
So wait a minute. 8 months of planning and preparation and also starting over and over for 12 athletes.
Oh, yeah. And I'm very grateful for those 12. Mm-hmm. Super grateful, because that was the start. Yeah. It let me know that we had something, right? It let me know. So all 8 months, we had 15 signed up, 12 showed up. And that didn't even cover half the expenses. So putting all of my own money, so investing my own money and all this type of stuff into this vision of this thing. Yeah. We had one later on that year. So that was a success, just having it, that first one, and figuring it out, right? We had another one later on that year. It was about 12 people that showed up there, right? And so that was success, again, just having it. But now the buzz is getting out. Man, there's something going on in Northern California with strongman, right? Beast of the Band, Big Tommy Burns, right? And so the next year, we only did one event. That was 2017 when we started. 2018, we had 26 people come out to that next event, that very, the next year. And 30 signed up, 26 showed up. But I just kept working. And now I knew I needed to work on my promotion skills and getting things out there earlier and things like that. So I just took, instead of having another competition later on that year, I just worked on mastering that one competition and pumping and promoting. And now strongman has started gaining more notoriety, and people start to know who it is, and they got sponsored by Rogue, World's Strongest Man and Arnold. They got sponsored by Rogue, and that really opened up, because at that time CrossFit took over the world.
That's right.
Who do CrossFit, they know Rogue, and if Rogue is investing into strongman, then there must be something there. So more people start to know who it was. There was, Netflix documentaries with Eddie Hall and all these different type of things where, people start to know what strongman was. And it wasn't just, yeah, I remember, doing or watching that when I was, a kid or back in the day. It was more, oh man, people do this thing. So I've worked on promoting. That was a skill that I had to work on all to 2018. And 2019, once we come back to that spring event again, the first one I threw was called Beast of the Bay Strength Challenge. And so that was the one that we had 12, then we had 26 the next year. 2019, we had 104 people register for the Beast of the Bay Strength Challenge.
Big Tommy Burns. This is a big, dude. This is such a big story. Dude, I gotta continue with you. I've got another phone call coming up at 1:00, but dude, holy smokes, this is just an incredible adventure, an incredible story. But going from 12 athletes to 26, like, just kind of recapping what you've shared here, man. You've shared about passion. You've shared about commitment. You've shared about being true to yourself. You've shared about letting go to receive blessings elsewhere. You've shared about patience. Dude, like, if you could give just one, maybe keep it under 2 minutes here, but if you could give, like, sum it up, like, what is something that you would just want to kind of like encompass all of this together with, like, maybe over what you've learned over the years, maybe with, the patience, the struggle, the endurance. You talk about, you've developed strength through the pain. Like, what is one, two or three things that you could just deliver right now that'll be just so impactful to close on, man? Because I'm just touched, and I'm just like,
Well, thank you, brother.
I really just want more. Yeah.
Well, thank you, man. And I appreciate you for having me. Like I said, man, I really, really appreciate you for having me and allowing me to share this story, man, because I think it's powerful and it helps some other people. But, the three things I always talk about with people when they ask me about all of that, man, this is how I've tied it all together. Listen, get really clear. Spend the time on that internal environment. I call that clarity. That's the stage of clarity. There's only 3 steps to this. Clarity, really understand who you are, who you want to become, and what you want to produce in life. And oftentimes, what you want to produce in life is tied to what makes you happy, what brings you joy, and what produces peace for you. There could be things going on chaotic around you, but for some reason, you still have peace, and that's because you're tied to that thing. Get really clear on that. That's clarity. The next stage is courage. Once you get clear on it, now you have to move in it, because if you don't move in it, you're just going to be frustrated because you decided not to move in it. Another year is going to go by, and then more time is going to go by. And then you're going to be like me, overstaying your welcome somewhere when you were supposed to move, right? And so, but when you have the courage to move on what it is that you got clear about, now the rest of your life start to open up. It's kind of like being on a stairwell and you're on the bottom step looking at the top. You only can see the step that you're on, maybe the next one, but you can't see the rest of the stairwell. You can see the very end very clearly. But until you take that next step, the next step won't open up. So you got to take the courage and figure out how to move to that next step. And then the last piece of that is confidence. Understanding that whether you get a desired outcome or not, whether you have the relationships or not, the resources or not, regardless of what the circumstances are right now, that you are enough to get that vision done, that dream done, that goal done that's been just irking you, right? And digging at you for so long that whether you get the desired outcome or not, it's going to open up another step on the ladder so that you can take the next step, that you are enough to get it done.
My man, that is just beautiful. We're going to wrap it up right there, my man. That is just beautiful. I definitely want a part 2 with you. I definitely want to dive deeper on the things that you're doing and the future of where you're seeing your competitions going and all that stuff, my man. But big Tommy Burns, many blessings to you, man. Thank you so much for doing this podcast with us today. This has been an absolute pleasure. So thank you, my man.
Thank you, my brother. Thank you for having me on. You guys have a great Wednesday, and I'll see you on part 2.
Awesome. Thank you, Tommy. You have a blessed day, man. And thank you, everybody, for watching. We did not get to questions today, but I unfortunately have to cut this thing short, but we will pick it up for part 2 sometime soon.
All right.
All right. Take care, my man.
Bye.